Now time to shift gears and check in on weather with Nebraska Extension Ag Climatologist and Market Journal Chief Meteorologist Eric Hunt. Eric, the furnace was cranked up this past week. Quite literally, it felt that way at times. How long can we expect this heat to stick around?
Well, thank you, Bryce. I think depending on where you were in the state this last week, it felt like a furnace, or in some places it definitely felt like a sauna. It was definitely the case here in eastern Nebraska. So just take a quick look at the drought monitor, which was released on Thursday morning. So very little change from last week. We still have about 68% of the state in drought, and very little change or no change to the areas that were in extreme to exceptional drought. So let's take a look at precipitation that fell across, between last Friday morning and Thursday morning, or last Friday morning to this Thursday morning. So again, pretty decent precipitation out here in parts of Panhandle and southwestern Nebraska. We did have decent precipitation Sunday night across portions of eastern Nebraska, including about a 2-inch rain or a little bit more in parts of Saunders County. But you'll notice that a lot of the places that are in D3 and D4 really had negligible to no precipitation in the last week, which is unfortunate given the heat that we've been having, for most of this week. So taking a look at the vegetation conditions across the state. So again, generally very good conditions across most of western Nebraska. I think you should get here into the very far eastern part of Nebraska. Things generally are fairly good. But this is really picking up on a lot of the stress that we have on, especially on the rain-fed crops across parts of east central and south central Nebraska. And this is a map of the Enhanced Vegetation Index. So the Enhanced Vegetation Index is kind of a little bit more of a sophisticated version of the NDVI. And this might be a little tough to see, but what I've highlighted here is hail damage between Waco and Utica. So back on July 10th, there was very tremendous hail that fell in that area. Really destroyed a lot of crops. Again, for some farmers, this was unfortunately 2 years in a row of significant hail damage. But I'm pointing this out just to show how massively this appears on satellite data. So as we get into this weekend and next week, what we're going to have to pay attention to is where this frontal passage stops. So this weekend we will have a frontal passage that should clear most of the state. It should get into Kansas. And the European model, is really starting to get a little bit more bullish with precipitation over the weekend across a lot of Nebraska. Not the entire state. This does not mean that everybody's going to get precipitation, as we kind of know with forecasts for this time of year. But again, I think this is a favorable pattern for us to get precipitation. And I think what I'll be careful of is that, some places could get, very significant precipitation in an hour, hour and a half. There is probably some chance, of course, of wind and hail with this. The other thing, too, is, how far north does, the heat come next week? So right now, the expectation is that parts of southeastern Nebraska, particularly the very southeastern core of the state, will be very warm. We will probably see temperatures, at least for a couple of days, in the 90s again, with generally pretty high humidity. So we could see heat indices, getting into the 105, 110 range again for a couple of days, particularly in parts of eastern Nebraska. So again, as we move to the outlooks, again, I think most of the heat risk is going to be a little bit further south of us this coming week. And precipitation actually, though, should actually, at least according to CPC, looks relatively good for the first part of August. Moving a little bit deeper into August, this actually looks very favorable for us. Near normal temperatures, below normal out west. So again, this is basically suggesting that ridge is going to be flattening out across a lot of the southern part of the state or southern part of the U.S. with more seasonal conditions in our area. And again, reasonably good chances of precipitation. This is good. So maybe just take a look at maybe what we could maybe have for corn yield this year. So what I put up here is the percentage of corn that was in poor to very poor condition at the end of July. So notice there's a spread, kind of a spread between, 3 to 33%, 2012 being the worst. We are currently sitting at 15%. So most years you might think that, that would be a guarantee below trend, but there are a couple years, like 2013 and 2015 also had similar numbers, and we were kind of right around trend. So there is hope that we still could turn out a decent corn crop this year if we have a good August.